Coming up, we take to the streets across Canada all summer to get your views on everything Canadian. From Manitoba, Northwest Territories and Nunavut, this is Outburst. Hello and welcome to Outburst. I'm Glenn McGuinness. Well, Canada's claim in the Arctic has always been somewhat contentious, with countries like Russia, Denmark, and the United States staking their claim on land and underwater territory in the area. Federal governments past and present have always insisted this territory belongs to Canada. So we took the topic to residents of Manitoba and two northern territories. Our question: is the government doing enough to protect Canada's interests in the north?
As much as they can do in the world front, I think they are. They're up against a lot of competition from the Russians and the Americans, I think. It's a tough battle. So, yes, I'd say they are.
Adequately, but there's more to be done in the north, especially concerning the climate change events that's going on. And I guess Canada has a big role to play in the global scene, because a large portion of our country is in the north, and of course it's imperative that the government takes a step in the right direction, especially to make sure that when the time comes, we won't be drained of all the resources to explore the possibilities that the climate change imposes on us. In addition, we have this route that everybody's quarreling about, the passageway that the Americans and Soviet Unions and other countries are trying to get hold of. And I guess we need a presence, a very strong presence, to let them know that they're still using the Canadian territory to go through that. So I think it's important for us to be there.
No, I'd say no, not quite enough.
And how can they do better, I guess?
Well, I guess it's a bit of a balance, understanding what the needs are up there, and I guess a balance of military spending. Maybe there could be a little bit more military spending or scientific research spending to get more of a presence up there. It could also mean more industry building, again, so it's all about building presence, I think, and by having presence up there, that helps defend our interests.
It seems like anybody can just sail in and sail out, and I think we need 2 submarines, to get up there and assert our dominance over that area and protect it in the same time. Because otherwise, we got all these countries want it. We can't give it to them.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I think about it a fair bit. I think I definitely feel like the government is paying attention to the north. Like, if there was ever a time when the north was really like a hinterland from a policy perspective and from a focus perspective, I don't think that is the case now. But yeah, so for me, like, the question is focusing on people. So are they supporting northerners in the best way? I don't have like a strong feeling that they are or they're not, but I am grateful that I think all Canadians are paying attention to the north.
Personally, I don't think so. No, I don't. See, the north is someplace that they can make money by gold, oil, minerals, land, stuff like that. So, other than that, no.
Well, I think with the change of government from last October, I hope to see a more collaborative, cooperative approach to the affairs in the north. We've seen the Arctic Council is a very, very important venue for discussing the issues in the north, and the only way to have to pave a future for all the northern people that is of mutual benefit is to have increased international cooperation. So I hope to see that they will be a little bit more cooperative, less confrontational, less about narrow self-interest, and I think that's where the future lies.
I'll say they're trying to, but they're not doing enough, because the north, as we know, is vulnerable to other countries' interests. Like, we've got Russia, we've got Greenland, and the United States, of course. So they can do a better job in protecting the North. That's what I think.
If by interest in the North you mean like their non-renewable resources, then yeah, by all means, I think they're doing a lot. But if they mean for the people that live up here, especially the Indigenous folks, the Inuit, then I feel like there's still a lot that can be done to have a real working relationship between Inuit and the government of Canada.
Well, there's always more to be done. I think that the previous governments have shown interest in the North, and they've said they'd invest a lot in the North, but I think from what I've heard, being in Nunavut for a short amount of time, the investments haven't always been followed through. So there's always more that can be done, I think.
Winnipeg was the first city in North America to have what? Traffic lights, paved roads, 911 emergency system. Traffic lights, paved roads, 911.
Traffic lights.
Traffic lights. Traffic lights. 911.
It might have been traffic lights because they had cars and horses and things all on those big wide streets, but I might be wrong.
You're going with traffic lights. And you?
911. Traffic lights?
Traffic lights. Traffic lights. Traffic lights.
I don't know.
I'm going with 911.
You're absolutely correct. Oh. Very good. The first city in North America to use a central emergency number was Winnipeg, Manitoba in 1959. The city initially used 999 as the emergency number, but switched when 911 was proposed by the United States.
It's the province which is home to the polar bear capital of the world and Winnie the Pooh. I'm of course talking about the province of Manitoba. Did you know Manitoba means where the spirit lives in the language of the Cree people? Also, Winnipeg has the sunniest winter season in all of Canada with 358 hours of sunshine. The Royal Winnipeg Ballet is Canada's oldest dance company and the longest continuously operating ballet company in North America. The Harlequin Romance publishing empire began in Winnipeg. The rural municipality of Gimli, Manitoba is home to the largest concentration of people of Icelandic ancestry outside Iceland. And those are just a few facts about the province of Manitoba. One of the goals of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is to renew relations with Canada's Indigenous peoples and respect their cultural history. It was one of the promises during last year's election campaign, along with launching an inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women. So we took to the streets to get your take on this topic. Our question: how would you rate the federal government's approach to Indigenous issues?
Well, the federal government has the appearance of doing a whole lot, and I applaud them for that. Their acknowledgement of the Indigenous Declaration at the United Nations, well done. They talk about reconciliation, great. But on the ground, nothing's changed. They haven't changed any of their policies. We haven't had any policy announcements that change, for example, the negotiations process, comprehensive claims policy. That hasn't changed. We've got a lot of rhetoric about we want to get these claims settled, but it's been over 6 months, and we're still operating with the conservative agenda. So, good talk, little action.
I think it's been a big change, and we'll wait to see whether it's just a facade or not. But I think they made a very good start, this new government, in actually rectifying the kind of poor relations that existed for the last 5-10 years in the previous government. So I think we'll see. I know INAC now is in good hands, I believe, and better hands, that is. And so we'll see with the the missing and murdered Aboriginal women's, how that inquiry comes about. But I'm very hopeful.
Well, that's another tricky one because we're at kind of, maybe the honeymoon is ending or around there, but we've been dealing with this honeymoon of a new government. So I think a lot about reconciliation, and I have been swept up. I'm non-Aboriginal. I've been swept up emotionally in some of the gestures of reconciliation. And I'm affected by those in a positive way, but I do feel like reconciliation has to be about land and sacrifice for non-Aboriginal Canadians. So could there be more done? Should there be more done? I would definitely say yes.
Coming from New Zealand, where there's basically a single culture that has to be negotiated and resolved, that's hard enough. I can't really imagine how much more complex all the different communities and groups must make this affair. 5 out of 10.
What's been happening is that they've been slowly getting towards working on a better relationship, but there's still so much stuff that has to happen. There's still so much stuff that needs to be cleared before we can start really working together. And it's like they're not doing enough to really push the agenda on a better working relationship.
But again, there's been a lot of talk. This government has tried to show that they care more than the previous government, which is a nice first step. But again, a lot of follow-through needs to happen before those statements can be determined to be true.
Well, it's definitely been in high profile. I was just at a lecture last night that was saying we've got some really strong commitments in place, so now we need to see the action. So definitely it's been a positive move forward, I think, in terms of being willing to address those issues. So now I'm really curious to see, are they going to actually implement the funding? The funding has been named but hasn't been implemented. So I'm positive. I'm optimistic about it.
I think it's getting better, but we've got a long ways to go. It's going to be a long-term process. We need immediate action, but we also have to recognize that it's taken us generations to get into the situation we're in. It's going to take us a long time to work our way through it.
Currently untested. I think that the government that we have in place right now hasn't had enough time to really get involved and to start doing things. I'm hopeful that the Trudeau government will start doing some of the things that he's promised and where things have started to go, and that things will be great that way. If you want to ask about the prior federal governments, it was horrible.
And of course there are many places in the country, in many provinces we don't have adequate water or good quality water. Safety issues, transportation, health issues. I guess these are all issues that needs to be considered and looked at in the long term, not the short term 4 years government period that we have. It needs a lot, not only, as I say, not only government to look at, but also the general population to sit down and discuss these issues. It's high time that I think people come to terms with that it's an issue that needs to be solved.
I think it's much improved from the Harper days. There's probably a lot more to do in the future. It's a really tough issue for them to solve. I like the tone of reconciliation. It's a lot better way to approach things rather than confrontation. And I think that the current government is more about reconciliation than they are about conflict.
It's likely more efforts needed, even with this current government. Although it's a step in the right direction, even with the whole the female murders and all that have been happening across Canada, which is kind of a terrible thing. I think just more work is needed, both in terms of social spending, because I think a lot of the systemic causes or root cause has to do with cyclical patterns that are happening in the community, right? So the trick is trying to find ways to break those cycles, right? And once you break those cycles, then people have a chance to kind of elevate themselves. But that's kind of the challenge where we're at right now.
How many official languages are recognized in the Northwest Territories? 4, 9, or 11?
I'm going to go with 11. 4.
9. I'll go with 4.
That's a tough one. I'm thinking there are a lot of Aboriginal languages. The Inuit speak many dialects. I'll go with 4.
4.
9.
I think 4.
I'll say 11.
9.
It's 11.
Very good.
The Northwest Territories Official Languages Act recognizes 11 official languages. Among them are Chipewyan and Inuktitut, along with English, French, and Cree.
It's the second largest of Canada's 3 territories and extends from the 60th parallel to the North Pole. If you guessed Northwest Territories, you are correct. In 1870, the area became Canada's first territory. Today, over half the population is Indigenous. Its capital, Yellowknife, has a population of 20,000 and continues to grow. On average, the temperature in Yellowknife is minus 26 degrees Celsius in January and 16 degrees Celsius in July. Did you know Northwest Territories Nahanni National Park Reserve was the first site in the world to be granted World Heritage status by UNESCO? Also, the territory is known as the diamond capital of North America, an industry which plays a vital role in the local economy. And those are just a few facts about Northwest Territories.
The world is always changing, and Canada is no exception. We're the greatest nation on earth in which to live, but we still have our obstacles to overcome. From the environment to jobs to public safety, what stands out with you? Our question: what are the biggest challenges facing Canada today?
I think the primary challenge is protecting our water. I'm going back to the environment. We have the best potential water, freshwater system in the world. And we're doing very little to protect it, both short-term and long-term.
Up north, the shipping cost of goods, foods, is really expensive. So you get 2 bags and that's $100. And most towns up north, there's no real good jobs available.
Right now, we're in a different world. Everything is changing. We've got the terrorists out there. We've got social issues at home. We've got the oil issues in Alberta. So the government is facing all those, and I think they are not sure how to take a stand against the terrorist issues and how to help Alberta and even how to help us here in the north.
The way that our Indigenous folks have been dealt with in the past, Ontario said that the mercury levels would be washed out naturally in one Indigenous community in Northern Ontario, and that's been causing problems for the last 20 years. And now they're coming up with a bunch of program money for greenhouse gas emissions reduction. I mean, where's the priority?
In the state of today's world, I think Canada faces the challenge of growing its spirit of inclusivity and welcoming nature while trying to continue to build bridges between rich and poor, the marginalized and the privileged, whether that be Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians, new immigrants and refugees, and old stock Canadians. There's a lot bridge building that needs to continue to be grown upon in Canada. Yeah.
Probably the Indigenous issues. So I think the complexity of the systemic and structural issues that, it's one thing to say we're going to address these Indigenous issues, but how do you actually create change in a very complex system? So to me, that's a huge issue.
We have some serious poverty problems in this country. I think that's probably where things should really start, is dealing with our poverty problems and getting people jobs and getting people educated and getting people into the workforce and able to off the streets and into houses and into homes.
The economy is one of the major issues, but job creation is another. And I guess we do have a lot of capacity in Canada. It's how we exploit those capacities and make our the younger generation stand up and do their part, as well as get the older generations that's growing rapidly to also take part in the discussion and to evolve, to have a bigger vision of Canada rather than the short term.
Biggest challenges are, I'd say the environmental challenges are some of the biggest, like with climate change and just maintaining a nice, clean, healthy environment for everyone and not polluting our world so that we have to live in a polluted world. It's one of the biggest challenges.
I think being a global leader, I think that's a big thing that we should still have some focus on, and what it means to be Canadian. What's our place in the international community, and what does that mean in the context of, NATO and all those other global organizations. I think we have to continue working on that stance and trying to identify what we stand for and then what we're going to fight for, in terms of the international community.
Deficit and debt continue to grow, and future generations will have to pay for that. Maybe not mine, and maybe not me, but children and grandchildren ultimately will have to pay. It's the same as taking a loan from a bank. Ultimately it comes due, or there's some sort of foreclosure. So financially, I would think it's the matter of expenditures related to government, taxation related to government, fiscal and monetary issues.
Canada has some of the most stunning scenery on Earth, and for such a large country, our variety of nature is incredible. We took to the streets of Winnipeg, Yellowknife, and Iqaluit with this question: what makes your part of the country so unique?
Well, Yellowknife, that is unique in many ways. I mean, you have such a small town, but also a cosmopolitan town on just sitting on the taiga, and you're just so close to nature, so close to within arm's length from greenery and waters and beautiful lakes and all that sort of thing. So that's very special. Probably quite not unique, but makes it special.
And one thing I really like about our community is the size of it, and is the mix of who's here. There are new Canadians, there are multi-generational European sort of settler Canadians that have moved here and found their home here, made their home, and there is a huge and thriving and really important Indigenous community here.
The land and the languages and the people, the sunshine that we can get out all the time, and it's beautiful, and in the winter it's beautiful, in the summer it's beautiful, and we can just be so connected to the land.
Okay, I've been living here for about 7 years now, and what I've learned about being in Manitoba is that people are really engaged, people really care, people really actually, when they start to get information, they become very, very passionate about what's going on and about what they can do to fix things. And that's what I think is really great about Manitoba, is Manitobans. They're really fantastic people who really want to fix problems.
I don't know, Winnipeg's definitely unique in the fact, the First Nations, how many people there are here. There's more First Nations people in Winnipeg than any other gathering across Canada. I mean, that's one thing that definitely makes us unique, a cultural standing that stretches from far east to far west, a huge Filipino population, huge Ethiopian population. So there's a lot of different cultures in Winnipeg that kind of bring us all together to be a unique kind of soup of different people.
That's great. Oh, it's the best part in Canada.
And why is that?
It's got everything. It's got everything. We're not rushed off our feet. We have crime, but it's very minor compared to a lot of places. And in the summertime, we can go to lakes and parks in every direction. And in the wintertime, those who ski or snowshoe or whatever, they can go and do their wonders.
There are many factors, our diversity and our unity within that diversity. Many people will say Manitoba, as well as other parts of Canada, but Manitoba specifically, is a multicultural society. So we have different cultures, different races, different ethnicities, and in that diversity, I think, is our strength. And that's manifested in so many different ways. Many people will point to the strength of culture in Winnipeg and in Manitoba, to theater, to dance, to symphony. Others may point to sports. We take great pride, for instance, in having an NHL team, and yet we're a city of less than 100,000 people and a province of probably less than about 1.3 million.
It's long, long days in the summer and long nights in the winter. It takes a very special group of people to be able to live up here, especially in the cold, which most of us who are from up here don't mind, and it comes as a surprise for those that aren't from here to deal with. So it attracts a lot of people, but it surprises a lot of them too, about the length of our nights in the winter and the coldness and the length of the days in the summertime. So
it's Canada's newest and largest territory. I'm of course talking about Nunavut. Nunavut became Canada's third territory on April 1st, 1999. The creation of Nunavut was the outcome of the largest land claims agreement between the Canadian government and the native Inuit people. The Inuit people are one of the first Indigenous peoples in the Americas to achieve self-government. The Inuit language is called Inuktitut. Iqaluit is the capital of Nunavut. Iqaluit means many fish in Inuktitut. It was formerly known as Frobisher Bay until 1987. Back in 2010, Iqaluit hosted the finance meeting as part of the 2010 G7 summit. And those are just a few facts about Nunavut.
The name Nunavut means our land, wide open space, or polar bear.
Our land.
Our land.
Our land.
Our land.
Our land, wide open space, polar bear.
Polar bear.
Wide open space, actually. Wide open space.
Yeah, I think I'll go for that too.
I can tell it's wrong.
Our land. I'm going to go with our land as well.
Our land. Very good, guys.
All right.
The name for the territory Nunavut is an Inuktitut word meaning our land.
That's all for this episode of Outburst. Just a reminder, don't forget to check out our new CPAC TV To Go app and our CPAC Quiz Canada Trivia app. For more information, check our website, www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of all my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.